Hello, everyone. Mitch Jackson here. Welcome to Human Social's Human Side Interviews. And this afternoon, I've got a very special guest, someone that I met a week before last here in Orange County. Absolutely love his book, Captivology, The Science of Capturing People's Attention. And that is Mr. Ben Parr. Ben, thanks for being on the Human Side Interviews today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, after watching you do your thing live, it was going to happen. I mean, you entertained the group, the audience. You did a great job of really captivating my attention, and people I talked to afterwards all loved the fact that you came down and shared a little bit about yourself and your book with us. So thanks for being on Spreecast and the Human Side Interviews. For those of you that either know Ben but don't know him that well, let me give you a proper introduction, Ben, and then we're going to dive right into the book. Ben's an award-winning journalist, author, entrepreneur, investor, and expert on the topic of attention. He's the author of Captivology, and we're going to ask Ben where he came up with this name. And he's also the co-founder and managing partner of DominateFund, an early-stage venture capital firm that invests in and accelerates the growth of early-stage startups. Ben, appreciate you being on the show. Tell us a little bit about the thought process behind Captivology and how did you come up with that name?
The thought process behind choosing the name?
Why did you decide to write the book, and then how did you come up with the name?
So I decided to first write Captivology because of startups. Because startups were asking me for help in attention. It was after I joined, after I became an investor, after I left Mashable, which is where I started out. And they asked me for help in press, in marketing, in customer and user acquisition, and virality. And all these areas really come around attention. And I kind of realized that this was a subject that needed to be looked into deeper. And I've had many book offers over the years, but this was the first time I looked into something and I was like, I really needed to dig deeper, and it just became more and more fascinating as I looked into the subject, into the science of attention. And I also realized that most people haven't been exposed to it. There's a lot of great research out there, but not a lot of information about it in the public. No one's put together a tome combining all that research into something that everyone could use until now.
And never before has the topic of attention, the ability to grasp someone's attention, been more important. You point out very clearly in the beginning of your book, and I have to be honest, I'm about 1/3 of the way through. Just picked it up. I bought it at Linked OC, and a big shout out to Brian for putting on Linked OC. He does a great job here in Orange County. But Ben, you point out a research project by USC that talks about the number of newspapers we read at one time versus today. Can you share those findings with our viewers? And I think that somewhat emphasizes what a challenge it can be today to have your song heard above all the noise.
So the first thing to think about is the increasing exponential creation of content. And so I went through a lot of the research, and it shows that one study found that in 1986 we were exposed to approximately 40 newspapers worth of information daily. By 2006, it was 176 newspapers worth of information. And in 2014, we were exposed to 7 DVDs worth of information daily. And this year, it's supposed to jump up to 9 DVDs worth of information daily. The increase is exponential, and we still have the same 24 hours, the same attention system, the same knowledge. And so why do we expect people are going to be able to pay attention the same way they used to? And the same techniques that you used even 3-5 years ago aren't going to work anymore. And so you have to go above and beyond if you want to captivate attention or keep your own attention concentrated. Part of the reason I did the book.
Which is a great reason to do the book. I mean, people are wired a little bit different today. They expect information to be shared with them. When we're trying cases, Ben, we've modified our opening and closing statements completely different than how we did 10 years ago because of attention spans. And with respect to the book, for people that get your book, Captivology, and want to tap into different ways of grasping the attention of their audience, what are some of the steps, what are some of the keys that you can share with our viewers so that they're better at captivating their audience?
So this is the key subject of my book. I go through 7 key psychological triggers that capture our attention automatically at a psychological fundamental level. And these triggers captivate us regardless of culture or industry. They're fundamental to human nature. And so I talk about, for example, the power of our immediate attention and how automatic sounds and sights and sensations, automaticity, affects the way in which we pay attention. How studies show that if you're a hitchhiker on the side of the road, red is the best color to wear because of its contrast with the surroundings and the associations we have with that color. And then, but I go into long attention as well, and I talk about, for example, the reward systems of the brain and the body and how we pay attention to both intrinsic and extrinsic rewards. So intrinsic rewards are ones like self-satisfaction, purpose, mastery. They're great for capturing long-term attention, while ones like food, money, and sex are extrinsic rewards, and they're great for short-term attention. And so it's these psychological triggers that are the key to capturing attention. But there's a lot more to it than that as well.
When you sat down and decided to put your thoughts, your ideas, your research into words and to write your book, Ben, did you look back at any of your past experiences as an editor with Mashable, as a writer for USA Today, Financial Times, The Wall Street Journal, Forbes, other well-known publications based upon your experiences and things like that? Did you bring any of that into your book? And if so, how?
Oh, no, absolutely. And especially my time at Mashable helped inform the way in which I view attention. I saw thousands of companies come to me for trying to get attention, trying to get press, and only a few made it through me as a filter through my team. And I started learning a little bit more about how certain companies made it through and others didn't. But more importantly, I was part of building Mashable. Mashable was less than 5 million page views when I first got there. Now it's hundreds of millions of page views daily. And I was part of the process of building it up and how you got attention for a brand, for a media brand, and how you build a media brand up, and the secrets to that. And some of those secrets are woven into the fabric of the book.
For those viewers, Ben, and by the way, everyone, we're talking with Ben Parr, the co-founder and managing partner of DominateFund. And Ben, this is live, but it'll also be recorded, and many people watch the recorded version of Spreecast. Share using the buttons to the right next to Ben, if you would, please, on social media. It will not take you away from the program. And for those people, Ben, that aren't familiar with how to get the attention of somebody at a company like CNBC, Inc. magazine, Mashable, what have you, what are some tips for reaching out and getting their company known, getting their product reviewed or talked about on some of these platforms? Are there some basic steps that people can take that they'll learn when they read your book, Captivology?
Yeah, I talk, for example, in the basic steps of the 3 stages of attention and understanding that you need to walk your audience through those 3 stages, and different triggers captivate our attention at different stages. So there's immediate attention or immediate focus on a different sight or sound or stimuli. It's automatic and happens over the course of seconds. There's short attention. That's our short-term focus on something, and that happens over the course of maybe minutes or sometimes hours. And that's when we become consciously interested in something like a song or a test. And then there's long attention, long-term interest. And that is our long-term memory, and the difference between listening to a Beyonce song on the radio and becoming a lifelong fan of Beyonce. And I talk about how you can't jump to long attention. You have to build up your way there, starting with immediate attention, then short attention, then long attention. And my 7 psychological triggers, the captivation triggers, help you get through each stage.
And during your description, you talked about, someone described it as kind of like starting a fire from the very beginning to building it into a bonfire. Why is that the case? And are you able to skip steps to maximize and get attention, or to captivate someone's attention sooner rather than later?
So Attention is a bonfire because you can't start with the big roaring bonfire. You have to start with the spark in the ignition. Then you have to go with the kindling and build it up, and then you can put on the big logs. Attention is the same way. Immediate attention is the spark, short attention is the kindling, and long attention is the bonfire and the wood. You can't skip to long attention, but you don't need to use all the psychological triggers in order to get people's attention. And I'll just name them just so people know. We can talk about them all throughout, but there's automaticity, framing, disruption, rewards, reputation, mystery, and acknowledgement. And it's a mistake to try to use all 7 on any given thing, but some will be more effective than others or be necessary more than others. The big thing is using the right triggers for each stage so that you can get your audience from turning their heads to listen to you to becoming customers and users and to keeping them there. It's different triggers for different things.
If we were having this conversation 10 or 15 years ago, as opposed to today, taking into consideration the digital platforms and social media, are the fundamentals and principles behind these triggers the same as they were 15 years ago, or have things completely changed because of today's technology?
The fundamentals are the same. So the triggers are psychological in nature. They're based on our human biology. We would pay attention to mysteries regardless of whether it was 15 years ago or today. We've paid attention to rewards since the beginning of our species. And so how I kind of describe it is the technology may change and the way in which we pay attention may change, but the fundamental wiring has not changed. We still have those hunter-gatherer instincts, and while we're not running away from saber-toothed tigers, if we see the rustle in the bushes, we're going to pay attention because we're wired that way. And that's what I was trying to go after when I was doing the book, those fundamental forces.
And I think with the brief, with the first 1/3 that I've read, Ben, you've done a great job of really writing. I didn't want to put it down the other night. I mean, it's very well written, and I appreciate you coming on the show and allowing me to share this with our audience, because it's really a good read, and it really captures my attention. When you talk about the primal instincts that we have, being worried about eaten by the predator, and that is the basis behind why human beings take certain steps or flinch or act a certain way. Do you see any of that happening today with some of the new technology? In other words, when I talk to young business owners about embracing video technology, Periscope, Meerkat, Screecaps, things like this, some of them flinch as though they're looking at a saber-toothed tiger because they're worried about making a mistake for everyone to see. I mean, how does that all play into what you just described?
Well, this is where the audience is, and if you're not playing on those platforms, you're not going to be getting business. And it's the ones who are moving faster that are winning. Now, the difference now is that people are more willing to let you make honest mistakes. And honestly, most people don't make crazy, stupid mistakes unless you are actually, some kind of terrible racist homophobe kind of person, then maybe you don't get on social media. But for the most part, people want to have real engaging conversations. Real people show their raw side. Real people show emotions. We want to feel and see more of that. That's part of the power nowadays. And if you're not doing that, then you're going to slowly but surely fade into obscurity. And you go where the audience is, and the audience is on these new platforms now.
Which it sounds like those platforms are trying to get a hold of you as we're speaking, right?
No, don't worry.
So Ben, share with the audience, share with our viewers, whatever comes to mind, but one of the more recent best examples of how somebody reached out and captivated you, or reached out and got the attention of your company, or maybe on a personal level. What is it that you experienced recently that you would have written about in the book had it happened while you were writing the book? Anything in particular?
Ooh, that's a good one. There's been interesting stories, I would have made the comparisons like what happened with Brian Williams and why he failed to quell the audience controversy and why the controversy kept attention. there's been a lot of random things. You know, the dress the big viral sensation that happened a few months ago, where BuzzFeed wrote
Sure.
about a dress and everyone picked sides. There are a lot of little random things I would have talked about. The fundamentals of the book would have been the same. The triggers would have been the same. Maybe some of the stories would have been slightly different. But I'm starting to write these stories as if they're parts of the book and putting them on my blog and putting them on other people's blogs.
Okay. And, since you brought it up, if people would like to, and I'll have these in the show notes, but if people would like to follow your blog and connect with you, Ben, what's the best way for them to go about doing so?
I mean, I'm at Ben Parr, at BenParr on every social network. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, whichever one you want. It's always the same. And benparr.com, which is my blog and my personal site where you can see all the stuff I do and you can see some of my latest writings. And then Captivology, Captivology, Captivology.com, or just search it on Amazon right there.
There it is. And by the way, I love the picture. That is awesome. It shows that you've got a sense of humor, and I think it will captivate the attention of anyone walking by in a bookstore who happens to buy this old school at a bookstore. They're going to see your face, and they're going to make that purchase. Ben, one of the favorite parts about the Human Side interviews that I really enjoy is taking my my guests by the hand and going back in time just a little bit. And when you spoke to us in Linked OC in Orange County a couple of weeks ago, great presentation, but there was a part of me wondering, where did all of this start? What was it in Ben's early life that got him thinking the way he's thinking and doing the things that he's doing? And what early life influences were you exposed to, Ben, that got you maybe thinking the way you're thinking, but got you into the career path that you ended up taking, which, fast forward, ended up with this particular book?
Oh, I'll pick two things from my elementary school days. It was definitely being an Eagle Scout, and I was a Boy Scout, and I attained the rank of Eagle, and that's what taught me discipline. That's what taught me perseverance. That's what taught me ambition. A lot of the qualities that I have now was by being a scout, and I support the kind of lessons and value scouting teaches young men for the most part. And then in college, it was really just I started getting more involved in entrepreneurship. I was in an entrepreneurship class with who is now one of my two mentors, Troy Heinekoff, who heads Techstars Chicago, and
Okay.
he taught me so much about entrepreneurship, and it put me on the path of entrepreneurship, which led me to, which led me to Mashable, and it led me to the tech industry, and it led me to where I am today. And so I would say those are two critical things in my past that helped shape me in some way.
Which are two things that any young adult watching the show today can somewhat mirror. They can look at their early life experiences, responsibility, hard work, good ethics, and then look for a mentor to maybe take them by the hand and get them going in the right direction. Ben, my daughter is a junior at UCLA, and she and her friends who I've watched grow up, they're all getting ready to graduate and do their own thing. Many are going, on to higher education, but for those young adults coming out of college today that maybe don't have, the connections or a business idea or a product or an app that they're going to be selling. They're going into the real world like a lot of traditional people. And what suggestions or advice do you have when they're interviewing, when they're approaching companies, to separate themselves from everyone else in the herd, from all of the noise out there with respect to job applicants? Do you have any advice for young adults with respect to being noticed and captivating the attention of future employers?
The first thing I will say is this is a thing that you don't realize is important until after you leave, but networking. And you just mentioned it, but you can, if you're not already a senior, just graduated, you have time to go network. Go find the industry events in your city for the industry you want to be in, whether it's finance or technology or entertainment. And go meet the people there and talk to them and get to know them and become their friend. And if you're old enough, go have a drink with them and build relationships with them. that's how people get good jobs. It's relationships. It's not resumes. Now, if you can't do that, or that's not working as well, then it's really about finding a way to the disruption trigger, finding a way to stand out in some way. I remember there's a gal who recently graduated from my alma mater, Northwestern, and what she did was she had this resume made out of Legos, and to explain how she was the perfect fit for the company she was applying to. And this went viral all across Reddit, but more importantly, people called her back because it was so fascinating. They did something a little bit different and a little bit unique. Even just making the resume look a little bit different and modern matters. People throw these old version resumes and they never get read. It shows you've put in no effort and you have no creativity. And it's just those little things. But the number one thing is building the network. Go to industry events. Talk to people who are older than you. Build those relationships now. I know the ones, like there was one at the Linked event who is like 19, and I can tell when she graduates, she's going to have hundreds of thousands of connections, be able to get any job she wants because she's working her butt off right now to build relationships.
What types of things are she doing? Is she doing without disclosing anything personal? And what type of activity is she engaged with?
Even coming to the event, even coming to like my event and meeting people at my event and talking business and handing business cards, even that little minimal. But she's she's ambitious. She's working on her own projects. She has her own blog and all that sort of thing. And you should be doing that as well. Write about the stuff you're interested in. Write about what you want to be an expert in. Establish an expertise in an area. The experts are what get hired for really great jobs because once you become an expert in an area, there's not a lot of people in that area and you become more valuable.
It's interesting when you mention the resumes, traditional resumes. I don't even look at those when lawyers are looking to apply at our law firm. That kind of stuff doesn't interest me. I'll take a quick peek, but I want to know what their digital footprint is. I want to know if they're blogging, if they're doing live streaming, what are their interests, what are their activities, and that's what separates that particular person, good or bad, from everyone else. I had a chance to talk with David Merriman Scott, and he was talking about his daughter and my daughter are the same age, and how his daughter was blogging through high school and college. And it really helped separate her and her particular passion through the college application process and now thereafter. And he told my daughter, he said, AJ, start blogging. This is her first year at UCLA, whether it was writing, podcasting, video blogging, whatever it might be, et cetera, et cetera. Just make that digital footprint happen. And at the same time, when you're networking, like you just described, there's something to blog about. They can interview people like you and put it on the blog and start developing their networking. It's kind of a fun time to be alive because there's a lot of different options out there.
So, a quick mention, like the digital footprint really matters, both in terms of not having super embarrassing stuff out there, which I think most teenagers have learned, and thus they're using Snapchat and things like that to hide that.
You don't want to do that.
Also building a positive footprint on a personal blog, on Medium, on Twitter. Because look, if say you're trying to be a journalist, and if I get two candidates and one has a strong social media presence and the other has none, guess who's going to get hired? And that's true in almost every industry nowadays. Because if you already have a built-in audience and you've shown that you have something, you're going to get hired.
Well, Ben, that's really good advice. And for everyone that's watching the live show, or watching the recorded show, I'd like you to know we're talking with Ben Parr. He's a columnist for Inc. magazine, contributor to CNBC. You may know him from his various features in media, including ABC News, printed, shown on MSNBC, CNN, and CNBC, USA Today, Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Mashable. It goes on. And Ben, I really am glad that you came on the show today and shared just a little bit about Captivology, your new book, The Science of Capturing People's Attention. For everything that Ben was talking about for you soon-to-be college grads, do what Ben told you to do, but use the techniques and approaches and triggers in his book to do it in a way where you captivate the audience attention, your potential employer's attention. If you're networking, you want to be the person that's being noticed while you're networking in the right way. And I think Ben's book will allow you to do just that. Ben, before we wrap things up today, is there anything else that you'd like to add that we haven't talked about? that's dear to your heart with respect to a particular story or a particular approach in your book?
It's less that and more a piece of advice I like to talk to people about, which is this book I wrote, Captivology, is both for introverts and extroverts. And so one of the first people I interviewed for the book was Susan Cain, who's the best-selling author of Quiet. And while she personally never wants attention for herself, she knows, like everybody else, you want attention for something. For a piece of art, for the attention of your students, the attention for when you're doing a public speech, attention for your startup. Attention's the fundamental currency of the modern economy. To get anything done in this modern era, you have to be able to control and manage and understand attention. And it's not an introvert or extrovert thing. And it's not a selfish thing either. The massive attention, the common thread I found from people like Sheryl Sandberg and Steven Soderbergh and Bill Gates, they get attention, but not for themselves, but for their projects, their passions, and ideas. And so we should celebrate that, and we should celebrate the idea of captivating others for great causes and great ideas, and bringing attention to things that are worthy and matter.
And Bill and Melinda Gates do a great job with their foundation, partnering with Rotary International to help eradicate polio around the world. I mean, that's one way where bringing them into a fight that Rotary's been battling for 35 plus years has made all the difference in the world. And it's just wonderful when you see that type of person of influence, someone that can capture the attention of their audience and bring it to social good. The world's going to be a better place because of it. Ben, you're one of those people. Great book, everybody. I highly recommend that you get it. Ben Parr's Captivology, The Science of Capturing People's Attention. If you want to get in touch with Ben, like you said earlier, just Google his name. That's his name on social. His blog is benparr.com. And Ben, I'd like to thank you very much for being on today's show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, you're welcome. Listen, if everyone enjoyed the show, tweet it out, share the recorded version. I've got Ben, probably a friend of yours, Joe Paluzzi, on June 16th at 10 in the morning here on the Human Side Interviews. Everyone, please join us, and we're going to put Joe through the ringer on content marketing and everything else. It should be a good show. Ben, thank you very much, my friend. And if next time you're in Orange County, I'm going to grab that drink with you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Are you good, Ben?
Yeah. Looks like it's still live, or at least on my side.
We're still live, and once I click off, we're done. Ben, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.